This newspaper article was the Davis County Clipper, Friday, September 2nd, 1977, written by Gary R. Blodgett. Two Davis County couples from Bountiful and Hill Air Force Base have joined the bandwagon of those who reportedly to have seen Bigfoot, a legendary animal-like beast in the high Uintas. Mr. and Mrs. Robert Melka and Sergeant and Mrs. Fred Rosenberg saw not only one, but three of these strange-looking beasts. We sat on a ridge, looking into a meadow only 300 to 500 yards away when we saw the first creature, said Mr. Melka. A few seconds later, a second beast, both much larger than humans, entered the meadow, and the two of them romped back and forth in a clearing for at least 10 minutes. He said the weather was clear and there was no obstruction. All four spoke very empathetically about what they had seen, and the four interviewed separately as couples, reportedly seeing exactly the same things, and described in detail what the creatures looked like and their actions. These things, whatever they were, walked and ran only on two legs. They had arms, legs, and bodies much like a human, but covered with hair. Only their hands and feet did not have hair, they said. Their profile was to us much of the time, and there was no question about them having only two legs, but their legs and arms appeared to be out of proportion, larger than those of humans. Two of them would romp and play in the meadow while a third stood some 100 yards away at the edge of the meadow near the point of a cluster of pines. The three were in perfect view all the time except for a few seconds when two of them disappeared into a wash, but returned again to the meadow. They could not see us as we were above them on a ridge, somewhat secluded. Then they would run, they would take tremendous strides, and would cross 100-yard clearing in rapid speed. They could not have been bears or other animals. We don't know what they were, but they were something that we had never seen before. They did not have the pointed snouts as bears do, and we had a good long look at their profiles. Sergeant Rosenberg said he has hunted wild game for more than 25 years around the world, and these are nothing like anything he has ever seen before in real life or otherwise. The beasts were described as being 8 to 10 feet tall, with much broader shoulders than humans, with distinct arms, hands, legs, and bodies much like humans. It's hard to judge our exact distance, but I know that if they had been elk, I could have killed them with my high-powered rifle that has a telescopic sight. We were that close, said Sergeant Rosenberg. The sighting was on July 10th, but the four never discussed the matter further among themselves or with anyone. The Melkas never even told their children, and the Rosenbergs told their family only that they had seen something strange while in the Uintas. We thought a lot about it, but didn't want to talk about it and be humiliated by those who wouldn't believe us, said Mr. Melka. Sergeant Rosenberg said that when the first sightings were reported last weekend by Jay Barker and his party from North Ogden, we decided to tell the world what we had seen earlier in the month in the same general area, the primitive Uintas. The sighting by the Davis County couples was about 1.5 miles southwest of Elizabeth Lake, about 17 miles northwest of where the Barker group saw their beast. It's a very primitive area, about 18 miles from the nearest road, said Sergeant Rosenberg. We had taken a 4-wheel drive Jeep into the area looking for a suitable site for an elk camp in late September. We stopped and walked to the ridge to look into the area. Pat, Miss Rosenberg, was the first to catch the creature out of the corner of her eye. At first we were shocked at the huge size of these things, but then we became intrigued and just stood and watched them. We weren't scared, but we were apprehensive. They said as luck would have it, they left their rifles, binoculars, and of course cameras at home. Had we been better armed, they only had 2 pistols, we would have searched for the creature, said Mr. Melka, but we weren't going to go after them on foot after we had seen them. Sergeant Rosenberg said he is going back into the area this weekend bow hunting, but will probably take a rifle and camera along. The four will return there about September 26th for the elk hunt and plan to camp at the same exact spot they saw the creatures. They said the Bigfoot Association in Mount Hood, Washington was notified and will come to the site for a thorough investigation within the next few weeks. Meanwhile, it's feared that many curious people will be going into the area to search for Bigfoot. Saturday, September 3rd, 1977. Ogden Standard-Examiner by Brett Strand, outdoor editor. Search party tracks Bigfoot. A party of Bigfoot experts from throughout the nation are scheduled to be in the Uinta Mountains this weekend to check on Utah's reports of the creature. The group will be taken into the Kuberant Basin at the head of the Weber River drainage, where such a creature was reported seen by a couple a few weeks ago. Leading the party will be Jerry Dahlberg, Weber County Conservation Officer, Utah Division of Wildlife Resources, Officer Dahlberg says he plans to make plaster casts of footprints he believed made by the creature that was spotted near a small lake. 2 North Ogden men and 6 youths reported seeing the gorilla-like creature that ambled off into the timber after seeing them. The party was about a half a mile away from the ridge and watched the creature move off for about a half a mile before it disappeared. Jay Barker of North Ogden said the creature had a mantle of white hair down its body. He said it was 10 feet tall. Since the report by the group, others have said they spotted the similar creature in the areas of the Uinta Mountains. Others in the Kuberant Basin area 2 weeks ago said they heard strange growling and howling in the area. They said the sounds were like nothing they had ever heard before, and they were frightened. They also heard heavy crashing in the brush and timber at the same time. Mr. Barker also said on a trip back into the basin a week ago, there was a strange smell present throughout the area. Bigfoot investigators from all over the nation have been calling Mr. Barker and state wild officials to check on reports and add information. One expert in Colorado said the creature is nocturnal and feeds on both meats and plants. He told Officer Dahlberg the evidence of such a creature he has collected is overwhelming. Although he is a disbeliever, wildlife officers say the initial description of the animal fits that of a grizzly bear. They said, however, it would be extremely unusual for grizzly to be in the area. The couple said they saw such a creature last June in Mount Elizabeth area, about 20 miles from the Kuberant Basin. This newspaper article come out on Thursday, September 15, 1977 by Gary R. Blodgett, Davis News Journal. Bigfoot in Uintas? Nothing conclusive. Whatever or whoever Bigfoot is, he's an elusive creature. For the past 3 weeks, scores of persons have scoured the high Uintas looking for the human-like monster, but none has reported sighting him, let alone capturing the beast. An official search party from the Weber County scoured the Kuberant area of the Uinta Mountains for the legendary Bigfoot, but report finding nothing conclusive. Jerry Dahlberg, conservation officer of the Utah Division of Wildlife Resources, said his party covered some 10 square miles without a trace. He said some of the area was so primitive it looked like it had never been penetrated by man before. We covered the entire Kuberant Basin area one day and followed the day with a search in the Bear River side of the area. Officer Dahlberg said that although they failed to turn up any concrete evidence that the ape-like creature tabbed Bigfoot existed, we are not just going to write the whole thing off. If such a creature is in the area, he would be constantly on the move. But we should be able to find some kind of evidence, such as animal carcasses, torn tree bark, a form of shelter, etc., but we have found none. Officer Dahlberg said he plans to take a look at the area later, probably in the area of Holiday Park on the upper Weber River. There are miles and miles of rugged terrain up there, he said. The 2 areas of the sightings are very primitive, very rugged. Few people have visited the areas. In fact, the 2 areas where Bigfoot was sighted are some 17 miles, direct line, apart. But descriptions by the 2 parties, 8 in one group and 4 in another, bear some resemblance. The smaller group of 2 middle-aged couples reported sighting and viewing clearly for more than 10 minutes. Not 1, but 3 beast-like creatures which they said were 8 to 10 feet tall with human-like features but animal-like characteristics. The group of 8 persons, including 2 adults and 6 youngsters, reporting seeing one of the creatures. They are very reputable persons. Elk season, which opens later part of September, should draw scores of hunters in all parts of the Uinta Range. But after that, snow should begin to fly, and it will probably be next spring, if ever, that there will be more Bigfoot sightings. Persons camping or hiking in the Uinta Mountains are urged to take their cameras, not only for the beautiful scenery, but just in case. Neither party reported the sightings had cameras with them at the time. Thursday, August 25th, 1977. The Standard Examiner. The article was written by Bert Strand, the outdoor editor of Ogden, Utah. 2 North Ogden men and 6 young companions said today they watched a gorilla-like creature in the high Uinta Mountains that matched the reports of Bigfoot. Jay Barker, who has hunted big game animals in the area for years, said the creature was estimated to being around 10 feet tall. He said it was covered with a white mantle of hair over its shoulders and halfway down its huge body. The lower portion of the creature was dark-colored, said Mr. Barker, who said after it spotted his party, it ambled off on its hind legs. Mr. Barker and his 2 sons, Brent, who was 12 years old, and Danny, who was 6 years old, had hiked to the top of the ridge between Pass Lake and Couberant Basin at the head of the Weber River drainage. They reached the top of the ridge at noon on Monday and made contact with Larry Beeson and his 3 sons and a family friend. Scott, who was 14 years old, Michael 11, David 5, and Paul, who was 14 years old. About that time, they looked down upon a small alpine lake about 1/2 mile below them, and they saw the creature standing at its edge. At first, Mr. Barker thought he was looking at an elk. Then the creature turned to look up at the party, after a couple of the boys had knocked some rocks loose that rolled down the mountain. "What are we looking at?" said an amazed Mr. Beeson, as the creature turned and walked off on its hind legs. Mr. Barker said the distance was too far to get a good look at the creature's face, but he said it moved through scattered trees, turned its head back to look at them from time to time. He said they watched it for some 4 minutes while it covered about 1/2 mile through the scattered trees and then disappeared into the heavy timber. Startled and almost dumbfounded, the group stared. "That thing is standing on 2 legs, said one member of the amazed party as they looked on. Mr. Barker said the party went down to where they had seen the creature after it disappeared. They found paw-like imprints in the earth, but the ground was too hard and dry to leave a clear imprint. He said the paw mark was huge and resembled that made by a palm and toes. The party followed the path of the creature to the timber and found other scruff marks on the rocks and in the dry ground and grass. Mr. Barker said the group thought better about following the hairy creature into the heavy timber. Excited and unable to sleep, Mr. Barker said he and his boys were too tired after their experience to make the return trip of over 6 miles back to their camper near Pass Lake. They spent Monday night huddled around a campfire at Fish Lake near where the creature had been seen and came out Tuesday. Mr. Barker estimated the elevation of the small lake where the creature was seen at about 12,000 feet. He also said a sheep herder in the Gold Hills area below, Arlo Fawcett of Roy, reported he has been unable to get his sheep to stay in the area where the creature was seen. Mr. Fawcett reportedly said he would take his sheep into the area to graze, and they would beat him back to camp, apparently filled with fear. The herder also said, "It's the first summer this has happened. It's also the first summer that he has failed to see or hear coyotes in the area." Utah wildlife officials, informed of the incident, said they will ride into the area on horses to check the area. Jerry Dahlberg, Conservation Officer, Northern Region, Utah Division of Wildlife Resources, when informed of the creature, said the description fits a grizzly bear to a T, all except walking upright for such a long distance. Officer Dahlberg says he plans a horseback trip into the area over Labor Day weekend. Mr. Beeson said when they reached the area where the hairy creature was seen, they found the carcass of a rabbit that had been completely skinned, as if by a human, and then partially eaten. I hope you enjoyed a blast from the past in Bigfoot sightings. Keep on watching. We're going to keep on squatching.